What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. My name is Adam. I am your host. So, on today's episode, I'm going to be talking about the MLB rosters that were announced. Now, I do also want to mention something. I think we hit the 200th episode of the podcast because we did some episodes with Sasha from Card Hops. So, the numbering, I think this is episode 195 maybe, but we hit 200 the other day. So, that's pretty cool, I guess. I mean, I hadn't really been keeping that close attention. I knew that, obviously, getting up to 195, I think this episode is. So, I don't know. I don't really have too much to say about it. It's just kind of an exciting milestone to hit for the show. So, into today's topics, we have the MLB rosters have been announced, and all of the top 10 prospects, MLB pipeline prospects, are going to be on the 60-man rosters. So this is, I think this is pretty big news. I would say this season could be, I think it's honestly big for a couple of reasons, because if like the 60 game season in the 60-man rosters, like it's almost exact. Like, remember a while ago when I was talking about how there was too many MLB players, there's too many games. It's just they're getting paid too much money. It feels like there's too much of everything within the MLB. This could be like the perfect storm where I don't know what exactly would have to happen, but like this could be a preview of future seasons. Maybe it could be future how they run the leagues. And, I get it. MLB, like, minor league players are, if someone's worked their whole entire life to get to the majors and they're in single A or double A, and you're just like, oh, there's no single A or double A anymore forever, that's obviously, then that's not ideal. And I don't want to sit here and be like, they should just get rid of it. Like, who cares about the players? It's obviously, they'll have to change their whole entire life because of this change. But I guess I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there's really, like, the MLB should so here's what probably should happen. It should be something like the MLB should figure out how to help these players, because if they're on a team now, they're part of some sort of players association. So the players association should help these players like figure out what to do. And I'm not exactly sure if that's something that the MLB Players Association already does, but it realistically should be something that, like, if the MLB is going to make that type of change, which I don't think they will because of multiple reasons. Like, I think there's more money involved in more games, and there's more sponsorship opportunities with more teams. So, like, I don't think it'll be ever something that I don't know. It's not something that's going to happen anytime soon. But I think these 60 games, like, if we see like a humongous spike, like, I think it could be something where going forward they may say, well, maybe reducing the amount of games is the way to go, which is, like, I feel like that's something that everyone has said. And it just feels like with 162 games, one of the issues that I see, at least with baseball, is just the fact that with 162 games, you can go through a stretch of 10, 12, 15 games where maybe you lose all of those games, or you lose, you go 2-13 or something like that. So, like, any chance maybe you had to, if a new fan is going to be watching that product, and they have, like, because with 162 games, you just can't go all out for all 162 games, especially when in a week you may play like 5 to 6 games. So it's like there's no recovery. There's not enough of a recovery period for these players to go in and try as hard as they need to, or as hard to make the game better every single game. It's just not a realistic option for the players, because I think it was during the Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire documentary where they were saying that, like, they were taking some of these steroids because, like, they had to, because their body, like, from the amount of stress they were putting on their body from playing, there's no way they could go out and play every single day if they weren't trying to figure out a way to do that, which at that time it was steroids, which the steroids, I mean, that also, obviously, that helped with power. But, like, the recovery aspect of the steroids, like, I don't know. It's just for either way. So that's kind of getting beside the point of the prospects and all that stuff. So the only prospect, I don't know if I said 9 of 10 or if I said all of the top 10, but was only one prospect that didn't get the call, and that was Adley Rutschman, which the Orioles only announced 44 players, so they're allowed 60 players. So I would imagine they're in that 16 other players that haven't been announced. I would imagine Adley Rutschman will be one of them. I'm not sure why they wouldn't announce he's on the team, but the rest of them all are at least on the 60-man roster. So Gavin Lux, Luis Robert, they already have cards this year. And Joe Adell, I think, is on the 40-man opening day roster, which there's going to be, I think they're starting with 40 men at the start of the season, and then each week I think they do drop players. But the 60-man, I think the way that the article that I read said that they can bring players up and send them down however they want. So, like, if someone gets hurt, they can bring somebody up, or if someone needs a day off, they can. I'm not 100% sure. I think only the taxi players can be brought up and down. I'm not sure exactly if because of injury. So actually, I'm not 100% sure how that's going to work, because, like, if there's, well, so I guess they're not really being sent down anywhere. Like, hypothetically, say, I don't know, say like a player has played for 2 weeks. They play 2 weeks straight, and they're going to give them 2 days off. They can have them off of the roster and then bring up one of the prospects maybe to play in their spot. So I think Joe Adell is on for the Angels. He's on the regular main roster for the Angels. So he's probably going to, I think he is locked in for a card in Topps Update. Now, the other players, so you look at, like, Wander Franco is one of the players. I'm actually going to pull up the list right now, and let me make sure I've got it here. I wonder if I screenshotted the list. I may not have, which would be unfortunate. But I know most of them off the top of my head. So, actually, maybe I can pull it up. Hopefully I can. MLB, prospects, here we go. Hopefully this loads here. So, Wander Franco, I think he's number one prospect. He's on that 60-man roster. I think this is what's going to happen, because also there are other names that are outside the top 20 within the top 100 that made a team. So I think what's going to happen, basically, if I had to put a prediction in, I'd say if you were slated to make your major league debut this year, like if you're a prospect and you were still in the minors and you were going to make your major league debut this year, Nick Magrigold, which is a guy that I have actually just kind of started recently looking into, he probably will make his debut and play, so I think he'll probably get a Topps Update card. I guess it breaks down a couple different ways. So if you were slated to make your 2020 debut, I think you have, and you're on that 40-man roster, and you're on the opening day roster, I think you almost are 100%. You're 100% going to be getting a card. If you are on the 60-man roster and you make your debut, but maybe you weren't slated to. You make your debut, but you weren't slated to make your debut this year, I think there's probably a 50-50 shot, because I think they're past the amount of, like, 60 games. Like, if you play in 50 games, that, I think, qualifies you for this year, or it should. But if you only play in, like, 10 games, I'd say I'd give it a 10% chance that you get a card in Topps Update. Obviously, if you never make the roster, then you're not going to get a card. Like, if Wander Franco never, I'm scrolling, I'm looking for the list here. Okay, so yeah, Wander Franco. So, like, if Wander Franco never makes his debut, he's obviously not going to get a card. But if he makes his debut halfway through the season, like 30 games in, and say he only plays 15 games, I would say, for him specifically, I don't think he's going to get a card, because I think what they would want to do is they want to make sure. So, like, Artidius Acuña plays for the Reds. He isn't, for whatever reason, he didn't make the roster, which I saw that headline and I looked into it, and that really seems odd to me. But either way, like, I think they want to make sure that that if you're giving a player a rookie card, that they're going to be on the roster the next year. Now, if I don't know when or how that would all kind of fall into it, but like. So I'll just go. So I have the top 10 list here. So Wander Franco, number one, obviously. I think, like I said, if he makes his debut, only plays like 10 to 15 games, I say he probably doesn't get a card this year. They probably wait until next year. If he's on the opening day roster, he'll be in top Series 1. If he starts in the minors and then gets a call up in the middle of the season, he'll probably be a short print in Series 2, similar to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. If he starts the season on the roster, actually, no, if he starts the season on the roster, he'll probably be in Series 2, but he'll get a regular card in Series 2. If he makes his debut later on in the beginning part of the season, he'll probably be a short print in Series 2. But I think since he's 19, I would say based off of, let's see, looking at like his projected date of arrival was 2022, it looked like. So, like, I don't think he's going to get a card in Topps Update. I think the other person who may not get a card in Topps Update is Adley Rutschman, especially because he didn't make the roster. He didn't make this 60-man roster. So, like, if they announce he's going to be playing, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what teams are going to be doing this year, and this was something that I talked about like over the weekend. I think about teams' strategy when it came to these 60-man. When it comes to the 60-man rosters, like, how are they going to utilize the prospects? And because they're probably going to want to get the prospects time on the field, I would imagine, because they want to get them some. And this will be big for their development. It could be really good. It could be really bad because maybe they get to the majors and they actually like stink a little bit. That would kind of be an issue. Now, I think Adley Rutschman is a guy, like I said, who probably won't get a card this year. Not being on the roster, I think, is a big deal, and he probably would be a similar guy where, like, for the Orioles, they have a couple catchers ahead of him, so, like, they may call him up just for a couple games towards the end of the season. I would say if the Orioles, if 30 games, I think 30 games is going to be a big tell for some of these teams. Like, if a team looks like they're out of it 30 games in, I would say they're probably going to take more risks with a lot of their prospects. Or they'll just be calling these players up because I feel like this probably isn't going to count for service time. So, like, a lot of the top 10 prospects were all within, like, a year to 2 years probably getting called up. So, it feels like you'll see a lot of these prospects probably halfway through the season. I mean, whatever. And I didn't see if there was any type of article about service time. So, like, if this year is not going to count towards service time, I would expect, there's two factors. Well, not really. I don't know. There's a couple factors here. If this year does not count for service time, and a team is out of it, like there's no chance they can make the playoffs, they're going to call up all their top prospects probably. But, like, if service time is going to be, if they get called up 40 games in, or 20 games in, and the 40 games count as a year of service time, you can 100% guarantee that no prospect is going to get called up to the Major League squad until the day after whatever the service time date is. Because that's just, you've seen how, it's not petty, but it's like, for any type of prospect, like, the MLB teams want as much control as they can, and all they have to do is just not call them up for a certain amount of games. Like, I think Chris Bryant, like, got, I think it was Chris Bryant. I think he, like, sued the MLB or something because they literally called him up, like, the day after what would have been for the year of service time, but he could have been in the majors. So, like, you have seen some teams just call the players up, and service time's not a big issue. Like, last year you saw, like, Fernando Tatis, you saw Pete Alonso, which Pete Alonso, I think, is a case where he's a little bit older. He's like 24, so I don't think spending time in the minors really would have done him any good, and they probably want to get him up. He also broke the rookie home run record, so that obviously wouldn't have happened if he hadn't been called up. But with Eloy Jimenez, he started the year on the opening day roster, but he also signed a contract before the season started. So, like, for him, his service time really wasn't going to be affected one way or the other. But, like, for Vladimir Guerrero Jr., he didn't get called up until, like, halfway through the season or, like, after whatever the date was. So, if there's no date and the team's out of it, expect the prospects to get called up sooner rather than later in either platoon or, like, split time with whoever is in front of them. Like, if it's a second or third year player that's ahead of him, I would expect the prospect probably to get more time than that player. But if it's like a 8-9 year veteran, like splitting time maybe, but even less probably time for that prospect. So the next prospect is Mackenzie Gore. So I think he probably will be getting a Topps update card. Like, I could see him being either I could see him getting some time in the majors and enough time where he would be included. And same with Nate Pearson, who's on this list. And then, so there's Casey Mize, Royce Lewis, and Bobby Witt. So out of those players, I guess those, I'm not 100% sure what's really going to happen. Like I said, I skipped, well, not like I said, but Joe Adell was number 6, but I think he is on the 40-man, so he's going to get a Topps update card. And it is strange that, I'm sure Topps had nothing to do with this, but it is, and I guess actually there's no way they would have known, but it is, and they only would have been able to make it once they started the clock or whatever to get going. But the rosters came out like the Sunday after Series 2 came out, which I thought was kind of funny, with Series 2 being only having Luis Robert, and it's going to be not a good checklist, and it's going to be probably one of the bargain bin products, unless Luis Robert goes on to be like a top 5 player of all time. Then there will be some value there, but that's really the only hope for it. But I mean, with Bobby Witt being drafted and not being like an international signing, not be like 16 or 17, I think he probably will get the call up and to play for the Royals this season. Now, those players, I don't know what's going to happen. If they're going to get a Topps update card, I think I mean, this is just a prediction for me, but I have no idea what Topps is going to do. Because if they make a conscious decision of how many games you have to play before you get a card, like how many games is that going to be? Or like if you just are getting held out, like I said, I think if they're going to hold a lot of these prospects out unless they are playing well, because they want to make sure that next year they're on the major league roster, and that once minor leagues start back up, they're not back in the minors, because that wouldn't make much sense for Topps, because why would they have a 2020 rookie card and then be in the minors? Like, I don't know. We'll see. So I think I talked about, we'll know for sure when they make their debut if they have the rookie card logo or if they have the call-up logo, what they're going to do, because I also don't think that they would put the call-up logo on the card and then also include them in Topps Update. I don't think they would do that, so I think that's one way that we'll know for sure. One way we'll know for sure if they're getting a card or not. Now, another player I'm interested in is Andrew Vaughn. He made the 60-man roster. Now, I think they had a similar 40 to 50-ish man roster with the White Sox. So for that, I guess for him, the one thing is, like, I think the White Sox could compete this year. So I don't know if he has a spot on the team, because a lot of his positions are filled by either veterans or players they just signed. So I feel like there's not a good chance he's going to be in Topps Update in October, and they may even push back Topps Update to like November. I feel like, because they pushed back Series 2, so there's really no reason for them, especially if they want to get some of these players in there. There's no reason for them not to wait. But if they don't want to put the players in there, then it probably will just come out in October. But I don't know. We'll see. So I'm pretty excited for Topps Update. I think depending on how many of these prospects are in there, I think Update and Series 1 this year will probably be the two competing products Series 2, it has Luis Robert, but that's essentially it. So I don't expect that one to really... I expect that to be the third flagship product this year, unfortunately. But that's all I've got for this episode. I want to thank you all for listening. Thank you to our sponsor, StarStock. Go follow them at StarStock Market on Twitter and Instagram. Go follow me on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. It's Heroes for Sale. Thank you all for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. Before we get into today's episode, I want to talk to you about our sponsor, StarStock. You've heard me talk about them in the past, and now the website has been launched for a few weeks, and it looks really, really great. One of the best parts about the site is the fact that you can just send the cards in and you don't have to worry about making any listings or taking any pictures. You just send the cards in and they basically do all the work for you, which is really awesome. Another great part about the company is actually their website. So I'm somebody that uses the internet pretty frequently, and one of my pet peeves is when the site doesn't optimize for mobile. So StarStock's site does do this when you're on mobile versus desktop, and it's super easy to navigate. Now you can go to the website and register as a seller right from the site. You don't have to do any contact. And soon I've heard they're going to be getting some graded cards up on the website as well. So you can go to starstock.com to check out that. And then you can also go follow them on Twitter and Instagram at StarStock Market. Now let's get into the show.